It's an awesome day. We're blessed with really good weather today. Remember the last one?
No.
It was awful. But yeah, I'm just so glad to see everybody here. Today we're here in front of the Honorable Ahmed Hussen's office here in North York. Yes, his title is Honorable. That is correct. We have to show respect where we have to show respect. Even if sometimes they don't deserve that, we have to show that for their office. So, we're here to make a statement. What is that statement? Well, we're concerned about his stance on M103, for one thing. The motion that is the first step to making criticism of Islam criminal. It's not law yet. But how long will it be before it moves in that direction? Mr. Hussen came to Canada as a refugee in 1993 when he was in his teens. And he knows, or he should know, how precious our freedoms are. How could he, in good conscience, and as immigration minister, vote in favor of M103? It's beyond my comprehension. The very thing that draws people to our country, namely freedom, he is voting to curb. Mr. Hussen, you are aware of the strife you came out of as a child.
Right.
You are aware of the issue of Islamism in your native country. Should, yes. You are aware, as an immigrant and as a lawyer, the very precious gift of free expression that we enjoy here in Canada.
Amen.
What on earth would make you decide to curb this freedom by voting in favor of M103?
Yeah, explain that.
We question your motives very strongly. We would also like to address your job as immigration minister, Mr. Hussen. Coming out of a war-torn land, rife with terrorist activities, how? Gotta turn the face. Hard.
Come here, everybody, to see.
How can you advocate the admission to our free democracy of hundreds, if not thousands, of potential Islamists? Mr. Hussen, we want to be able to speak out when Imam and Toronto police chaplain Musla Khan says that it's okay to marry a 9-year-old, that beating your wife is permissible, or when Imam Phillips of Toronto teaches that it's permissible to hit your wife according to Islam. We want to be able to say, no, it is not permissible in our democracy.
We will not be quelled.
We will not be quelled.
We will not be quelled. We will not be quelled.
When Imam Kandil of Montreal calls for the execution of the enemies of Islam, we cry out against this. Or how about when Imam Shaikh of Toronto states that the punishment for apostasy is death?
We will not be quelled.
This is an affront to our freedoms. This is an affront to our sensibilities. This is an affront to Canada.
Right. Yes.
Mr. Hussen, we want to be able to warn against religious accommodation in our schools without being vilified. Did you know that in Islamic countries, schools do not accommodate religious practices? I'm sure you do know that. Why does Canada accommodate it?
We will not be quelled.
That's right.
We will not be quelled. We will not be quelled. We will not be quelled. We will not be quelled.
We want to be able to warn of material being given out at our university campuses during Islam Awareness Week. Material that calls for the subjugation of women, that calls for a worldwide caliphate, that calls non-Muslims infidels. We want to be able to warn about material that is given out on our street corners, spouting that same rhetoric. We want to be able to do this without being hassled, fined, jailed, or worse. Are there moderate Muslims? Of course there are.
They don't want it either.
Is there a moderate Islam? Well, I will quote Mr. Erdogan, who has said in 2007, and I quote, "The term moderate Islam is ugly and offensive. There is no moderate Islam. End quote. Can Islam be reformed? Only Muslims can answer this question. Our concern is for our country, our freedoms, and this includes freedoms for Muslims that live here.
Yay!
Mr. Hussen, we are here in front of your office here, not only to picket you, but to picket anyone who is trying to curb criticism of Islam, trying to curb free speech. If you love Canada, as you profess you do, you would be against M103.
Yes.
Let it be known that Pegida does not advocate hatred or hate speech or action against anyone. But we do want to protect our democracy. And in protecting our democracy, we need to be able to speak out against a radical ideology that advocates hatred. Speaking of hatred, this is very important, and I think everybody needs to know this. Speaking of hatred, last month we picketed in front of MP Ikra Khalid's office in Mississauga. She's the MP that brought forward this whole motion.
Boo, Ikra! Ikra, wake up!
Yeah. We were joined at that time by a Pakistani Christian activist who was passionate in his speech in defense of free speech. Coming from Pakistan, he is very aware of the danger of curbing free speech. Sorry, hair in my mouth.
Don't be quelled.
He is very aware of the danger of curbing free speech. He knows firsthand the danger of the blasphemy laws in place in Pakistan. This gentleman was raked over the coals by a mainstream media source, and I'm not going to name it because I'm not going to give him a plug.
Diana Media. Yeah.
Yes. And the result of this was threats to his family in Pakistan and threats to himself here in Canada.
Terrible.
That's why he's not here today, because of that. It's so sad, it's so wrong.
Yeah, in Pakistan they quell all day long, every day. Yeah. They just bash the brains out of some guy for no reason.
This man has done an immense amount of work to help persecuted minorities in Pakistan, and he is vilified. Why? Because he dares to speak out against this radical ideology. This is so wrong. So, Mr. Hussen, you are saying that M103 is put in place to curb hatred. Hatred against whom, may I ask you? We will not be silenced, Mr. Hussen, regardless of whether this motion moves forward or not.
Your right to free expression ends when you want to start talking about killing other people.
Our Judeo-Christian heritage, with its moral democratic laws, is far too important to let this go. We have to keep fighting. I'm always puzzled when I hear Canadians attacking those of us who are concerned with this issue, namely the issue of continuing Islamization. I have to ask myself, do these people not follow what is happening in Europe? Are they so arrogant as to think that what is happening there can never happen here? I'm sure that is what many Europeans thought as well, and they have changed their tune. Canada, you have to educate yourselves. Educate yourselves about Sharia courts in Britain. Educate yourselves about no-go zones throughout Europe. Educate yourselves about Europeans being forced to change their culture because of Islam. Educate yourselves about the return to potential dictatorship in Turkey because of Islamist Erdogan. And finally, if not firstly, educate yourselves about what is going on here in Canada. Material given out in our university campuses. The things being taught in our mosques. If you think what is happening in Europe will not happen here, you are fooling yourselves. Study the candidates for the upcoming Conservative leadership race. Make an informed choice for the one that has the best interest of Canada in mind.
And also study, very importantly, the Armenian genocide, where Muslims and Christians lived for decades side by side until one fateful day, April 24th, which is coming up in another couple of days, Monday, 1915, where 1.5 million Christian Armenians were slaughtered.
Very, very important as well.
Yes.
Canadians, we call on you, those here today and those at home, do not be afraid. Remember where we came from, what made Canada great. Do not give up. Our elected officials are just that, our elected officials.
Right on.
Call them to account
Yeah.
with respect. They work for us. Together we can make change. I'd like to close with a quote by our former Prime Minister, John Diefenbaker. I quote, "I am a Canadian, free to speak without fear, free to worship in my own way, free to stand for what I think is right, free to oppose what I believe is wrong, or free to choose those whom shall govern my country. This heritage of freedom I pledge to uphold for myself and all mankind." End quote. Never give up the fight, Canada.
Freedom is our nationality. Freedom is our nationality.
Freedom is our nationality. Freedom is our nationality.
Freedom is our nationality.
Hold up.
Keep safe,
Okay.
Canada.
What I also want to do before we march back is I want to remember all the people that have been killed and injured since our last demo, which was March 25th. That's 1 month. In 1 month, 1,160 people have been killed through Islamic terrorism in the name of Islam.
Shame.
This is not. Yeah, this is not only in Western countries. It is in Islamic countries. So Muslims are suffering just like everyone else.
And they need peace.
Yep, 1,000.
Yeah, they
1,100.
need peace, everybody.
1,079. Sorry, 1,079 have been injured. So what I would like to do is have a moment of silence, a minute of silence, and after that I would like to sing our national anthem. So you guys by the road, if you can come here for a second. Guys.
Political Islam needs to be kept on a leash.
And everybody wanna leave, so we need united and save the Canada, guys.
Together we rise.
Yes,
Okay,
we're gonna
one
win.
more.
We're gonna win.
A moment of silence, please, starting now. Thank you.
Are they coming or not?
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all our sons' command, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true North strong and free, from far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Viva Canada! God bless Canada!
Viva Canada!
God bless Canada! God bless Canada! God bless Canada! God bless Canada! God bless Canada!
Stop the invasion.
Okay, let's march back.
Since we're all here, many of us are. Some of us are going to go to a busy street corner, St. Clair and Dundas or something.